Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to 2CTV, your global news channel. We have some breaking news coming from the heart of Westminster as the BBC have decided to F around in order to find out. They have technically apologized to President Trump, but they are now fighting against the financial compensation claims coming from the President of the United States and his lawyers in Florida. We're going to give you guys the live coverage of this absolutely chaotic conflict between the BBC and the President. Tomorrow is Friday, of course, and we are expecting a reaction from the President's lawyers in terms of the court case and everything else. We have also gotten in touch with the White House, our 2CTV team, to get a response, which we will be bringing you guys in the next few minutes. But the BBC is going down, regardless of any of this. This is the death of the BBC. Welcome to the funeral, and the celebrations continue as we are now obviously still giving you guys a limited offer to join 2CTV Plus instead. Use the promo code RIPBBC to get 50% off annual memberships of 2CTV Plus by going directly on 2c.tv, or just find the link in the description. RIPBBC. All right, let me give you guys the latest update. The BBC have now apologized to the President. They have added that it was an error of judgment. And their program will not be broadcast again in this form on any BBC platforms, of course, including BBC iPlayer. A BBC spokesperson has said that the BBC sincerely regrets the manner in which the video clip was edited, but they have also added that we at the BBC strongly disagree that there is any basis for a defamation claims. This happened in 2021, the speech. Then they did the Panorama documentary, the fake documentary. It definitely defamed the President. For years, people thought, it's not just the BBC, all the others lied as well, ABC, CNBC, CNN. For years, a lot of people actually thought and believed that the President incited violence. That's what happened. So there is definitely defamation here. And also they have apologized, which means their apology is an admission of guilt. So good luck with this. Also, their apology is not a real apology because they've just copied and pasted their existing apology that came out a few days ago. Because the BBC issued a general apology a few days ago after the resignations of their bosses. But President Trump and his lawyers said that the corporation defrauded the public over their Panorama documentary that made it appear as if he were explicitly urging people to attack the site, Capitol Hill, in Washington. He and his lawyers have obviously threatened $1 million lawsuit. And they've said that the President said, I think I have an obligation to do it. You can't allow people to do that. Obviously, a legal letter by President Trump's lawyer, Alejandro Brito, they demanded false, defamatory and inflammatory statements made about President Trump to be retracted immediately, which they have now been done, technically. But the letter added that if the BBC doesn't comply, including when it comes to financial compensation, President Trump will be left with no alternative but to enforce his legal and equitable rights, all of which obviously are expressly reserved and are not waived, including by filing legal action for no less than $1 billion in damages. Now, President Trump's legal team said today that the President has not yet filed a lawsuit. That will be tomorrow. We're still waiting for that. But we have a full statement from the BBC now, which we can read. This is a statement. Lawyers for the BBC have written to President Trump's legal team in response to a letter received on Sunday. BBC Chair Samir Shah has separately sent a personal letter to the White House making clear to President Trump that he and the corporation are sorry for the edit of the president's speech on January 6, 2021, which featured in the program. The BBC has no plans to rebroadcast the documentary, which was called Trump: A Second Chance, on any BBC platform. So that's good, right? While the BBC sincerely regrets the manner in which the video clip was edited, we strongly disagree that there is a basis for a defamation claim. So this is a full statement by the BBC following what President Trump's lawyer said on Sunday. This is just the beginning. Things are just getting from bad to worse now. We're still just waiting for the comment and statement from the White House to our 2CTV team in Washington, D.C. But today has been a difficult day for the BBC. We need to obviously have them in our thoughts and prayers because there's while they are on the ground, actually they're not on the ground, they're in the water drowning, and people are kicking them and pushing them down. There have been multiple scandals as we speak over the last few hours. In case you haven't seen what's been going on, this is exactly why I am promoting 2CTV Plus, in case you don't know. Use the promo code RIPBBC to get 50% off. The reason for this is because the BBC have now this, instead of being better, instead of at least for a few days, try their best to be normal and just report the news like a normal person. They are digging even deeper. Earlier on, the BBC dropped a so-called news report in which they became the cheerleaders for the NHS, the National Health Service in the UK, the NHS's transgender propaganda. Now, I'm going to show you a video from the BBC. This is absolutely astonishing. Essentially, the NHS in the UK, who, by the way, the NHS, which is a state-run healthcare system, recently said that incest, as in, the thing that the Islamic community promotes, marrying your cousin marriages, the NHS promoted it, saying it's actually, there are benefits to it. Not health, but, keep the bond in the family. They literally said that. Today, the NHS are now claiming that fake women, so biological men who claim to be women, their breast milk, wait for this, is as good as real women's breast milk. Science, of course, says the opposite, right? Let's go to the BBC report earlier, which basically became the cheerleader for the NHS.
Now, a transgender woman's milk is just as good for babies as breast milk. That's according to a letter from the medical director at University Hospital Sussex NHS Foundation Trust. The claim was made as part of a response against campaign groups. The trust referred to studies and the World Health Organization guidance, including one case which found what it called no observable effects in babies fed by induced lactation.
Didn't even challenge it. They didn't even question it. They didn't even say, of course, well, science says the opposite. This is the NHS claiming. No, they're just reporting it as facts. And also, if you have that level of annoying voice, I don't think you should be a presenter for the BBC. Nasally voice sort of thing is good for you to be a Labour politician, because in order to be a successful senior Labour Party politician, like Keir Starmer, Ed Miliband, Rachel Reeves, you require the nasally voice. They all have the same voice, but not for a BBC presenter. It's a little bit embarrassing. But having said that, it gets worse. That this is not the only scandal today. The BBC are spending more time apologising today than actually reporting the news. So earlier on, and yesterday and today, the BBC published a report, lied, but again, about Rupert Lowe, the independent MP, saying that independent MP Rupert Lowe asks if the Prime Minister will put the death penalty for overseas and foreign criminals to the public in a referendum. Keir Starmer says the death penalty is not the answer, but said we must improve the criminal justice response. Considering that there was a video, this was in the House of Commons. Shortly after that, so that's what they said, right? If the PM will put death penalty for foreign criminals. That's it. That's all the BBC said. Then the BBC had to correct it and said, independent MP Rupert Lowe asks if the reintroduction of the death penalty for both foreign and domestic criminals should be put to the British public, people, in a legally binding referendum. Now, they were forced to then issue a formal apology to Rupert Lowe. They said earlier on, this post corrects an earlier post which incorrectly quoted Rupert Lowe. This correction supersedes a previous clarification. We apologize to Mr. Lowe for the error. Error? Was that an error? Didn't seem like an error. As I said, the BBC are spending more time apologizing than reporting the news. They used to tell us the news. Now they are the news. They literally on the homepage of the BBC News' website, you see these days, you see more news stories about the BBC themselves because they keep getting into trouble. Now tomorrow is going to be a huge day, but also let's not forget the scandals continue because Mariana Spring and the fact-checking team of the BBC and all the others are still carrying on with their fake propaganda. I'm going to explain in case you don't know what's been going on. In case you're watching from around the world, of course. The BBC launched BBC Verify, which was supposed to be a fact-checking program. The problem with that is that we on 2CTV had to then launch our own fact-checking of the fact-checkers program because they keep lying, right? The problem with this, like again, in case you might have missed it, this is the launch of BBC Verify. Then there was a whoopsie. The name of the presenter is Mariana Spring.
Welcome to BBC Verify. Like you said, we are a team of investigative journalists here at the BBC. We are also a new brand and we are a physical location above the newsroom in London. And the point of the team, as you said, is to verify video, to fact check, to counter disinformation and to analyse really complex stories so we can get to the truth of what's going on. Why does this matter? Well, mistruths can cause really serious harm to society and to the people in them. And
So this happened, right? Shortly after this, we discovered that Mariana Spring, the disinformation reporter of the BBC, in fact, lied on her CV or resume. That's what she did. She claimed the ranks, by the way, of the BBC very quickly after joining about... When did you join? About 6 years ago. Became the first specialist disinformation agent and correspondent. She's now 29 years old. She started early. She started facing claims that she gave misleading information to try to secure her work in the BBC. According to this was a report that was exposed by the New European. Mariana embellished her resume when applying for a job as a Moscow stringer for a US news site in 2018. She was lying about what she did in Moscow. And I cannot take these people seriously. These are the people who are supposed to be telling us the truth. We now have an update, I believe. Yes, okay, so our 2CTV team have got in touch with the White House to get a reaction about this breaking news. Okay, the White House we asked the White House for comment on the BBC's apology, but we were told that President Trump's outside counsel will be responding, so not the White House officially. We are now awaiting a response from President Trump's lawyers in Florida. So we will keep you guys posted. As I said, tomorrow is the key date when it comes to this conflict. And I believe the deadline for the BBC to comply is 10 p.m. UK time. Is it? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And, yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're just... There is a high probability of the $1 billion court case to be filed, the actual lawsuit. Obviously, it's not going to be in the UK, it's going to be in the US, in Florida, I believe. And we're going to have to wait and see if the president's legal team will be showing any mercy to the BBC or whether this is it. And the BBC will be massively damaged financially, which is, again, $1 billion is huge, considering that people in hundreds of thousands are cancelling their TV license in the UK. Of course, the BBC relies on the license fee, which is a basic tax that people pay to watch live TV, and a lot of people are cancelling. More people are cancelling than ever before, and the BBC's revenue is going down. They are already in a financial crisis, and the government, the Labour government, have obviously promised to safeguard this. That means that they are considering using income tax revenue to save the BBC, which means that it doesn't matter if you pay your TV license or not. The Keir Starmer's government will be using the general tax revenue to save the BBC. We know that plan has not been confirmed, but of course it's part of the safeguarding. Now, I'm going to get some reaction quickly. Don't forget, use the promo code RIPBBC to get 50% off annual memberships of 2C TV Plus by going directly on 2c.tv. And also, while you're here, don't forget to download the 2C TV app. But make sure to use the promo. You can only use the promo code on the website, not the app. The app subscriptions go towards Apple and Android, not us. So obviously, do it directly on the website. Then you can use the login details to log in on the app. Where are we with you guys? We have pieces saying my deadline runs out tomorrow. Yes, 10 p.m. UK time. It also says I want TV license suspended. So that was that had already been done by the Conservative government until a year ago. So the Tory government put a stamp on it. So by 2027, which is 2 years from now, the license, the BBC TV license, would have been cancelled, scrapped. In the first week when Keir Starmer became Prime Minister, he reversed that policy and he safeguarded the TV license. The Tories already cancelled it, and the BBC had 2 years to, well, at that point 3 years, to come up with a new funding model, whether through advertising or subscription model or whatever, or just begging people to pay them voluntarily. But of course, despite the Tories' efforts, the Labour government cancelled it, reversed the plans. Ivan says the BBC are overseeing their own demise. It's just getting, as I said, today alone, we found, 3 scandals? And they continue to just apologise without actually meaning it. The apology that they sent to President Trump today, or the last few minutes, is not an actual special apology, because if you read that apology, as I read out, and what they said a few days ago on Saturday or Sunday, which was a general apology to everybody, it's the same apology. It's the same thing. There's nothing specific about President Trump. And President Trump's lawyers, their demand was not just an apology. There were a few other key demands. One was the retraction, removing the content, which they have now done, but a financial claim, the compensation, which the BBC is now fighting that on. So it really depends on the next few hours and tomorrow whether President Trump's lawyers, well, technically it's President Trump, will be showing mercy to the BBC, and or they could just escalate the whole thing and file the lawsuit. Ivan also says trans milk for the win. What the F? That was the craziest thing I've seen, by the way. I was looking around, I was like, so what else have the BBC done today? And I was like, okay, of course, they are parroting the NHS's propaganda on fake women and milk. If you're a biological man claiming to have breast milk, slightly concerned what that milk is going to be. It's not the same. Lee says, I have a new report coming in from the BBC. Arrogance is rife and everyone at the BBC is unfortunately infected. Advice is to stay away until Trump comes along with his disinfectant or maybe bleach. Good idea. And oh dear. And Vinny says that I worry for those bringing kids into the world. The thing is, now that I think about the statements, it sort of makes sense, legally speaking, makes sense why it was basically the same general statement that they already sent out a few days ago. Because despite what I said earlier, that surely an apology is their admission of guilt, but actually their apology is still a general apology. Oh, we've done a whoopsie, error of judgment, As opposed to if the apology to President Trump tonight was very specific and saying that President Trump, we accept that whether intentionally or unintentionally we defamed you and we ruined your reputation. If the apology was like that, then yes, they would have been in even more trouble. That is an admission of guilt. But I think the apology being basically a copy and paste from a few days ago, just a general error of judgment, we regret this, oopsie. That's what they are banking on. That will be their legal angle, saying, well, we never actually admitted that we don't acknowledge any sort of defamation. You know, that President Trump is a big boy, and surely our tiny mistake didn't really destroy his reputation. That's what they're going to be, their defense lawyers for the BBC are going to be focusing on. Tony Terrence says, I hope Trump teams up with Rupert Lowe, sue the BBC for fake news on both of them and over BBC's own lies, if it's doable. The issue with the defamation cases, obviously Rupert Lowe, hypothetically, even if he wanted to do it, it will be in the UK. In the UK, suing people, the UK jurisdiction is not really, it's pointless because the punishment is not really that strong. So, for example, if hypothetically Rupert Lowe were to sue the BBC for what happened today, firstly, it's difficult because the BBC, or basically the judges will see it as, well, it was just a post on X. How many people saw it? Did people actually change their mind on Rupert Lowe, right? So you have to prove that his reputation was destroyed, right? And then even if Rupert Lowe wins, the problem is that the award is not really, he'll get paid like £300. Not 300, but it will be tiny. It's pointless, basically, if you do it in the UK. But obviously, if you get sued in America, it's a whole different thing. Also, the difference in the UK and the US, generally, again, if I could simplify it, obviously it's not as simplified, but to simplify the difference between the UK and the US, you've got two different places in terms of the jurisdictions. One side focuses on, when it comes to defamation and slander and libel, one side focuses on whether it actually, how much it damaged your reputation, and the other side focuses on the technicality of the lie. Can we prove that what you said about this person was a lie? Did you actually slander? So one is a bit technical. Is this a lie? So if on a technical level it was a slander, then you lose. The other one is about how much damage to the reputation. I'll simplify, but that is the main kind of focus between the two sides. Kemal says, meanwhile, the IRGC is what's going on? Rearming and threatening to hit Israel. Something about Lebanon's army. It's not disarming Hezbollah, Hamas, and Putin's openly arming Maduro. Yeah. Yes, that's true. Okay, Aaron says, BBC Newsnight also aired this June 2022, showing a pattern of repeated errors. So, it is not an isolated incident. We learn from mistakes, as they say. I think his lawyers will push ahead. The thing is, part of me, just for banter, will be like, do it anyway. But are they going to pick that battle? Yes, that's all about, is it worth it? So, we'll find out tomorrow. Ivan says, BBC will have to open a GoFundMe page. I think that's the best way. It's called supply and demand. If they don't have to go with a subscription model, right? Also, in order to pay their legal fees, they will definitely need a GoFundMe. But they could continue the GoFundMe page and do fundraising for afterwards, because the best option is not the advertising option. If they really claim that they are in demand, high demand, if the people actually love the BBC, then you can just open up a voluntary TV license scheme and people will voluntarily join and pay. It's called Netflix. So you do that. If you're good enough, you'll survive. If you're not good enough, it's the free market. You will die. That's how it should be. Subsidizing a dying industries and dying sectors is for idiots like Karl Marx. So stop doing that. If something's supposed to be dying, let it die. Stop basically injecting fake blood into his corpse. Or biological man's breast milk. You can try that. It's not going to work. I don't know. They've done this so many times with everybody. You had hit jobs on Tommy Robinson, on basically the whole of the Tory party for years. Anybody who's not socialist or liberal. And this is not going to be their last time. They're not going to learn. It's not really oh, well, this was a good punishment and they've learned from their lesson. Because most of the time it's not even that intentional. Now, this one was obviously planned because they edited it on purpose. But most of their biases, including what I just showed you about the BBC's propaganda report about the National Health Service's transgender men breast milk, it's actually subconscious. They just have that bias because they live in their own left-wing liberal bubble. They genuinely believe that they are right. So you can't fix that. They're not gonna like one day wake up because of this and say, actually, you know what? This fight with President Trump made us realize maybe biological men's breast milk is different to women's breast milk. They're still gonna be like, no. We still believe that, and we still believe that Greta Thunberg was right. Greta said we're gonna die in 2 years' time. Their planet's gonna end, and that was in 2018. But still, she's right. Doesn't matter. Double down. David says you have 6.8 thousand viewers at the moment. The BBC have 1.4 thousand. RIP BBC, as I said. Use the promo code RIP BBC. Get 50% off annual memberships of 2C TV Plus. Go on 2C.tv. So I can pivot easily. Have you seen the Telegraph podcast today? Why on earth would I do that to myself? It wasn't the only time they did it. It was done on Newsnight. Yeah, we mentioned the Newsnight thing. Different edit of the same speech, exactly the same interference. Inference, not interference. And what is it? I'd like to know what you think. It's the same thing. It's not really a surprise, and it depends on if the President Trump's legal counsel would be using that, if they are now aware, if they're going to be using that to push, because that would just help the case even more. But it's not really a surprise because they have done these things on a regular basis, even the last week, especially when it comes to people like President Trump. Just watch the BBC for like 15 minutes. I know it's going to be tough. Anytime they report on certain things like President Trump or the US, just listen to the sentences that they use and the tone and everything else and the way they angle the report. And you'll be like, they're claiming to be impartial. Why did they say that? If you could just write it down, you could write a whole book for just watching the BBC one day. Most of it is subtle, but that's how they get away with it. Because they are professional. They're absolutely professional at being subtle, doing subtle propaganda. They're not like the CNN. They are slightly more professional when it comes to their propaganda, but they still get exposed because it's just stupid. We've got the rise of new media and social media. We are here to fact check the fact checkers. Simon says, Tusi, there is breaking news from South Africa where they are illegally taking in refugees from Palestine. I don't know what that place is. What is Palestine? I don't know, it's some sort of fake thing from the Roman Empire, right? I do know Gaza. Yes, there was a plane from Gaza that just, it happened earlier this morning, went to South Africa, and they had the plane, the passengers, the migrants from Gaza got stuck on the plane, and it's been slightly chaotic, but we're still getting more information about what's going on in South Africa on that. We will do a report, don't worry guys, about that and Palestine. He says, high-ranking Air Force General defects to Pahlavi. Yes, we also tomorrow we're going to bring you guys the update from Iran, because earlier on a number of military personnel publicly defected from essentially the Islamic Republic to the Crown Prince's revolutionary movement. Things are slowly happening in Iran. Tomorrow we'll do a full report on that. Men do not produce milk, says PC. Yeah, depends how you define milk, I guess. These biological men who are claiming to be women, I'm not really sure where they're getting the so-called milk, but I don't think it's coming from here. Ivan says, no point crying over spilled milk. It's milk. It's not milk. definitely not milk. It's not supposed to be that salty. All right, Nick says, I feel like the BBC lovers like another BBC. I showed you the last few days when this whole war started between President Trump and the BBC. For the first couple of days, we had the BBC, as I call them, the BBC surrogates. So all these proxies, like the Hezbollah of the BBC, which is basically the news agents podcast, like Emily Maitlis. These are all former BBC people who have their own podcasts, and they like to tell you that they are now independent. We have our own podcast, new media. All their podcasts are funded by the establishment, by the way. And all these surrogates were going around defending the BBC, left, right, and centre. Even the other liberal presenters from the other outlets, the competitors of the BBC, from LBC to Sky News, they were all coming out to defend the BBC. It was absolutely fascinating. They have been slightly quiet over the last day or two, but I think they're going to come out of their holes tomorrow morning, because obviously this is just breaking news. By the time they find time to get their thoughts together to form a sentence, it's going to take some time. They're not as quick as TCTV going live when something major happens. Anyway, Tony says that the world now knows that the BBC is totally left-wing biased and totally unfit for purpose. It must now be shut down or made subscription-only broadcaster. That was literally done as a policy by the Tory government. Stupid Labour reversed that plan. It's the only way to do it is... I think the BBC could get away with doing advertising. They don't have to do subscription. They really don't have to, because that will fail. But if they do advertising, just simple. You don't have to go crazy like US level, because US networks, you get commercial breaks and adverts every 2 seconds. In the UK, you just get it once in the middle of the program, just once. That's the norm, and it's only like 3-4 minutes. If the BBC do it, because right now as things stand, the BBC, not BBC News, the BBC still have relatively good content. So relatively, they still come up with some good limited series and things like that. They could get away with it. There are still people that culturally are still stuck like by watching the BBC. So I think they could just get away with having basic advertising. Subscription model will fail because people won't necessarily voluntarily pay for the BBC, apart from a small group of champagne socialists and limousine liberals, but normal people won't. And also subscription models is not culturally a thing in the UK. The British culture don't really, it's not a thing. We don't value that kind of the aspects of capitalism that people in America or even Canada actually are used to. We don't get it. Most of us, I mean, I do. I got all the subscriptions, but a lot of people will look at it like, I know it's only £3 a month, this, but no, I just don't like that at the end of the month I have to look at my bank statement and I've got this £5 and I've got this, that is another £3. It's psychologically, we just don't like it. Like too many things every month. So I've got to pay the bills. It's too much. Even if you can afford it, people don't like it. They're like, it's too much. Just give it to me for free. Give me advertising. People prefer that. Or like the NHS healthcare system. Give me free at the point of use. Even though I'm paying for it every year with taxes, but I don't want, even if the subscription for healthcare was £10 a month, I mean, that's too low. If it was £50 a month and some people could afford it, people would still be like, no, I'd rather pay £60 a month in taxes, but I don't want to see it. Just take the money and don't tell me. People would like rather do that. It's more of the European mentality, obviously. The UK is still in the middle between the European mentality and the American side, but we still haven't really grabbed that kind of the concept of the subscription model for anything really. So the BBC will definitely get destroyed if they go Netflix style. And but advertising could just about save it. Anyway, yeah, JS also says that's the thing. It's because there's way too many subscriptions. So that's what people see at the end of the bills at the month. Like, well, it's just it's £2, £2, £5, £3, but it's just too many. So people either just sign up to everything, and like that's just too many now. Whereas I'm selective. I'm like, I'm just gonna have 3 subscriptions for this thing, entertainment, for example, and that's it. But considering that we in the UK, like most of the Western world right now, you leave the house in the morning, you wake up, you breathe, you open the door, half your money's gone. That's just how it works these days. You breathe, you have to pay somehow. Something happens, the taxes will go immediately. You open the door, you take even the bus or the train, the rest of the money is gone. You go to take a basic coffee or lunch, a basic sandwich, the rest of the money is gone. By the time we come home, we have no money left. So, but my point is, like, you're spending more money throughout the day than that £3 for the month, or £2 or £1. But it's just when you put it together, psychologically, it's just too much. Psychologically, it's like too many things on the bill every single month. Now, so I think that was the latest from the White House. They've told us obviously to wait now until probably tomorrow to get the full reaction. Also, speaking of subscriptions, because I understand the problem of too many subscriptions, we made it easier now because the BBC is dying. We're giving us 50%. Come on, 50% off. Use the promo code RIPBBC to join 2CTV Plus and get 50% off annual memberships. Just do it, just for a whole year. And go on 2C.tv and download the 2CTV app. Trust me, you will not regret this. If you haven't joined already, just go on the website, see what you're getting out of it. You're gonna love it. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maya 2C, and we are the media.